invisible. You have some that are glaring, but some of the more damaging scars and injuries, you can't see it, they're invisible. And sometimes the warrior doesn't know that they have these injuries and these scars because they've been operating in this as normal until they come back, as we say, come back to the world. And then you realize the things that you were doing, 24/7 is abnormal in the world. The threat is not, imminent. But when you live at such a heightened, sense of danger, I guess is a common word that could be used, it tends to affect your marriage on the way you respond to your spouse. It may affect how you deal with your children. And then there's some things as men we just don't want to share. And we're trying to take on all of this water into this boat, and you don't realize that you're sinking. And you think that, if I deal with it, if I can deal with it because I'm the head of the household. I've been ordained to do such. My shoulders are broad. And then there's nights where you wake up completely wet from night terrors, and you're focusing on those who didn't come home. And what did you do wrong? How could you prevent this? And then I kind of call that in group the God complex. You think you're God, that you can change the fate of others? That's not your responsibility. That's not what you were placed to do. You did exactly what God gave you to do. And, faith, if you anchor yourself in faith, that has been the major turning point. That and, coming to Joni and Friends, especially when, you're a combat veteran, you really don't like groups. You really don't like a lot of people. And you've asked me 5 years ago to stand up here or sit up here and speak before you, I'd be like, no, it's not happening. There's nothing to tell me, nope, you're not doing it. Because our stories to someone who hasn't lived it is just that, a story. But for those who live it, it is real. And pain is no respecter of time. So when those memories are triggered, it's like you're right back there. So most veterans don't share. It's nothing against you personally. It's the inner turmoil that we deal with. But Joni and Friends provided a safe place where you're around other combat veterans. Now, the first couple of days, no, they're not going to talk to you. They're still going to have this wall up. But after coming back year after year and being a participant and now a group leader, it has forced me to come out of my shell. It has forced me to share and to deal with some of those wounds that you put a Band-Aid over, but it's still a gaping wound. And that, with Joni and Friends, have given us such a profound purpose that we look forward to it in September. That for this next week, we're going to be surrounded by love, integrity, and faith. And I'm going to stop taking up the room. Hold on.
Sometimes I have to prompt Dumas a little bit to get him to speak. Christy said, I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit about how you came to the First Warrior, what it was like for you. I think Dumas started that. And then maybe how you guys have transitioned, because you both are now they come as a family, but we also put them to work. They help lead some of the breakout groups. And so Christy with the caregivers, the spouses, partners, the sometimes parents or siblings that come along on the retreat with the veteran, and then Dumas with the vet groups, the men's groups.
First, Joni and Friends was stressful for me. Often because where we live, we are always on. We have to be on. Just based on what I do for a living and my husband's business and some of the positions that we hold in the community, I'm actually a forensic psychologist by trade. And I'm a human rights commissioner for my county. And my husband is a small business owner, and he's a mentor in the community, and he's Coach Dumas. So we always have to be on. And so when we first came to Johnny and Friends, I was still in on mode. So even though much of what was happening was triggering for my husband, even being in a large group of people and sitting up front and not close to the door, sitting with his back to the door and not being able to see who or what was coming in and out. And all I keep thinking is, he needs to be still. He's fidgeting. People are looking. Oh, Jesus, he's falling asleep. And, you know, it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 at breakfast, and him coming late to breakfast, and other families are there and mostly together. And I know that mornings are very hard for my husband, you know, based on whether or not he has slept, whether or not there's been a night terror, whether or not he's taken his medication at a certain time, which makes him groggy in the morning. And all of these things are swirling around in my head that I believe I need to be responsible for. And so that first year was stressful for me. And after, like Dumas said, we call him Dumas, like Dumas said, coming back year after year gave us permission to not be on. To know that we are going to be accepted and included and not judged made it so much more comfortable. And you know, year after year, you know, now I'm like, are you asleep over there? That's your business. What's going on over here? And although I can make a joke about it now and I can make light of it, it's so important. It was so important for us to be able to be present. And that's what Johnny and Friends does. It gives us permission to shut off and to be present.
I'm wondering, they have a wonderful son, Ross. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your experience having Ross be part of Family Retreat too. Time without the kids. That was what that was. Programming for the kids.
Yes, programming for the kids has just been a godsend. It was funny to walk up as a picture of the three of us. He's now taller than I am, and he's 12. But it also gave him the chance to be a kid and to be with other children who understand, having parents who are sometimes all the way on, some days are off, and being able to be free of the expectation that he himself, even as a kid, has to be on. Now, we still have high expectations for Ross. Ross gets straight A's. We don't play with academics and behavior either. But he still had a chance to be a kid and to play and to be with others who understand, at least to some degree, living with the invisible wounds of war. And to see one of his volunteers here tonight, it's been rewarding for him, and he looks forward to it every single year. And so great.
And I will say this to add. After that first year, and the second year, and the third year, he literally cried when it was time to leave. And this is a 6-hour drive. He literally bawled the entire time because he was given, unlimited amount of attention. It was focused on him. And it gave us a break that we didn't have to meet his every need. And we felt safe with who he was with. And they were not only nurturing, but they too believed in the high standards that we set for him, but we allowed him to operate within those left and right margins. And every year, I think this was the first year he didn't cry all the way home. He came about an hour. He was sad. He was in his feelings. He was sad.
What tools have you learned at Johnny and Friends Warrior Getaway that you were able to take home with you to implement to be able to benefit from outside of the time that we're together down at the Chesapeake?
I think for me, number one was knowing that I was not experiencing all of this in a vacuum. I think that Johnny and Friends, and especially Jen, makes it very easy for us to normalize some of the things that we go through and that we are feeling. Being able to increase in communication. I feel like we talk a lot, but we have learned some tools to say our piece and then also take space and take a break. And know that that it's okay. It's okay to take space. It's okay to wait to have some of the conversations that you need to have. So that has been an invaluable experience, normalizing some of the pain and some of the sadness and even loss that you go through.
She said everything.
So, my last question is one that I know you guys are deeply involved in the veteran community and are giving a lot of yourselves. When you come back, my heart is always to see our veteran families connect in a deeper way, in an intentional way with themselves, with God, with others. Has that been the case for you? And is that a tool, or is that a takeaway that you have experienced there that you can incorporate in some of the work you do with the communities that you work with too?
Oh, absolutely. I see Johnny and Friends as a reset every single year. It is a reset for me. It is a plugging, unplugging, and then a plugging back in. And so that is something that I take home with me every year. And I preach it to whomever I may come in contact with is, you need to unplug. You need to reset. You are running on this hamster wheel and you're going so fast that you're missing out on great experiences and relationships. You need to reset. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things that I take away and I take back home and that I share with others.
First of all, I can't top that one. But I will say, some of the takeaways for me is the relationships that continue throughout the year with the veterans. And if there is a need, one year my wife came to me and said, oh, I got this email, one of the wounded warriors that was on the trip with us, they bought a house, but it was a storm, they got to put a roof on, put up some walls, and would you mind helping out? No, not a problem. How far is it away? Oh, it's about an hour, no problem. We load the truck up, we go over, and we spent the day, singing, telling jokes, going through, old Army stories, old Army lies. And we were able to, cut the cost for that person and ease that burden. And, what triggered that thought for me is another wounded warrior family that we're close to. Mr. Ford, I just saw him earlier, and he was like, hey, we're gonna take a week and spend it in West Virginia because we're gonna help this particular family finish building on their home so they can move into another part of the house. And it's those moments that you realize that God gives you paracletes someone to come alongside to help you when you can't help yourself. So the takeaways that I take away from Joni and Friends are things that, again, are intangible, that you can't see, that are not necessarily visible. But it gives you a sense of, hey, I am not alone. It's not just the three of us. It's not just our immediate family or our parents or siblings. There's a whole community out there that actually care and that you can tap into. And the more you pour into it, you can't be God-given because He gives you double the what that you give. So that part of it is tremendously rewarding. So thank you.
One of the special talents that Christy Dumas has is a gorgeous, gorgeous voice. And we've asked her to